it it rescued me completely. I don't know. I think I was suffering with depression. I didn't know how to vocalize this to anyone. I didn't know where to go to get help. So I was kind of trapped in this spiral. And if it wasn't for discovering these people, these communities, these experiences that I had, then yeah, I think my life would have been incredibly different.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Tuxford and welcome to my podcast, People Behind Brands. Brought to you by Making Websites Better. In each episode, I'm joined by an inspirational guest to hear more about their individual life lessons and how it shaped them into who they are today. To never miss an episode, subscribe to our exclusive content now and follow us on our social media platforms. People Behind Brands, life lessons from the world of business. In this episode, I'll sit down with Andrew Wright, a business development manager with a powerful story of self-discovery. From feeling like an outsider in his younger years, struggling to find direction and being brought up in an old school environment where male emotions weren't openly shared, Andrew's early years were filled with quiet challenges. But everything began to change when he found music. His creative outlet, his escape, and eventually his compass. Now deeply invested in sustainability through his line of work, Andrew shares how becoming a father gave him a new purpose. For his daughter, he's building a future rooted in compassion, creativity and care for the planet. This conversation is about finding meaning in new places, being vulnerable and turning your passion into purpose. Andrew, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Afternoon. Yeah, no, I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. All the better for having you on. So what have you been up to today?
The final part of the sales accelerator.
Nice. Is that the Sales Gate one?
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. So 4-part course. It was good to wrap it up today and close out the learning.
Yeah. Shout out to Sales Geek, who are very good at what they do. Today, we welcome Andrew Wright, a business development manager from ICX Group. Andrew has become a long-term valued connection and now friend from our time at various networking Essex events. Andrew helps local businesses in Essex and wider areas with reviving their redundant IT assets and protection of data, as well as stimulating a sustainable economy, improving digital quality and boosting ESG scores. Andrew joins us today as we delve deeper into his life lessons and his unique story of who he is today. So Andrew, let's get straight into it, my good man. Perhaps firstly, you could tell us a little bit more about ICX Group and your role at the company.
So I've been with them 1.5 years now. Started November 23. Was originally working in sales account management. Now transferred to business development. So it's given me the opportunity now working more with the marketing team to kind of really provide some more opportunities for the business to grow, essentially.
Cool, excellent. And typically, what type of individuals are you supporting when it comes to business development at the role? What does the best possible outlook look like for you when dealing with that client?
Yeah, I mean, our ideal clients are big corporations, banks, fintech, this kind of stuff. But yeah, at the same time, we work with SMEs, we work with small businesses because we want to make sure that the equipment that they have isn't going to waste. It's not going to landfill. It's not breaking down. It's not, the chemicals aren't ending up in the water table, not poisoning the soil. But you know, ideally, best case scenario, we get a load of equipment, we completely destroy it, we provide the certificates to the company to show that everything's been dealt with properly, and then we're able to sell that equipment on. We're able to put affordable technology in the hands of those who can't afford to buy it brand new. We close the digital divide, we protect the environment, and for the business, best case scenario is they get some money back.
Yeah. So in terms of your own sort of career journey so far, talk to us about your own setup as you have had your own business before. Perhaps you could reflect on some of those challenges and how it led to your role today, and more generally where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I have the philosophy that you're a product of the person that you are now is a product of every experience and everything that's ever happened to you up until this point. So, I mean, if I go right back to when I left school, I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life, as I'm sure a lot of 15, 16-year-old kids are in the same position. So, and then a family friend had an IT company, so I started working for him. Then I left that IT company after sort of 4.5 years to work for the family business, where I was the IT manager. But it was quite a small company. The infrastructure was pretty small. So I spent kind of 6 months rebuilding everything, and then it kind of worked. So I didn't have anything else to do, essentially. So it was, oh, here you go then, have some admin tasks. So I started doing admin, and then I ended up running one of the depots, and then became commercial manager, and then went into sales from there. And then, unfortunately, the business, we had a couple of clients that just didn't pay us, and we ended up with 2 clients owing us, I think it was £750,000. Business ran out of cash, and we had to close, unfortunately. I mean, we still had a very substantial order book, but we just couldn't fulfill those orders. So then I had the option. I could either continue in the utilities industry, or I could go and do something which, was something that I really enjoyed. So I set up the e-commerce store, which was great. Met a lot of amazing people who are still friends nowadays. I learned a lot of very important lessons, but I was a very niche corner of a very niche market. And then economic factors around the world started playing havoc with my business, to the point where, unfortunately, it was kind of unsustainable to continue, especially on a full-time basis. I wasn't able to pay my bills or my mortgage or support myself or my family. So I had to go out and get back into the world of full-time employment.
Listening to you, and obviously having done a little bit of research ahead of this episode, you've had a lot of experience in the construction industry, marketing, programming during your career. So you've also been in music, and obviously I know you've spoken to me about this a lot when we've met up a few times. But just talk to us a little bit more about the music side, because I know you're really passionate about it, and that part of your life.
Music is everything to me, to be honest. It's been my escape, it's been my savior, it's been my spiritual guidance, and it's really helped me find who I am as a person. And going back to that journey of a career, being a 15-year-old kid, not knowing what the hell I wanted to do with my life, if I was to meet that person now, the thing that I would say is go off, do some music production courses and learn how to make music. And this was before the days of the internet. This was before the days of software being widely available. And I didn't know that at that stage that being a musician was a career path that was open to me. I didn't have any classical training, didn't know how to play an instrument, still don't know how to play an instrument, but I know how to tell machines to make the music that I want to make. So it's that my family background, they're not creative at all. My dad's an extremely hardworking guy. My mum was very process driven, and again, both extremely hardworking, but not particularly creative. Mm-hmm. And I'm not entirely sure where the creative streak from me has come, but it's developed somewhere. So it kind of goes back to my journey through life. I'd started doing a paper round when I was 13, and I had a Walkman. I used to make my own tapes out of music that I liked because I didn't want to listen to the radio. I've always strayed away from what has been kind of the popular opinion of music, because for me it's not the pinnacle of music and artistic expression. So I would always search for something that really touched me as a music fan and something that really appealed to me. And then growing up, with my friends, no one was really into the music that I was into. And it wasn't until probably the early noughties that I really started to discover what music was truly about. And that's the point where I started really thinking, okay, I want to get involved in music a lot deeper than just being a listener and a consumer of music. I want to be part of it. I want to help shape the way that music is going, especially in the club scene and the sort of DJing and production and running parties and setting up record labels and doing events and all of this kind of stuff. And it was a real calling to me that I couldn't just be a passive bystander.
Yeah, well, we've obviously got a couple of questions coming up towards the end of the episode about music and your thoughts on it, and your favourite sort of artists and bands and stuff like that. So looking forward to getting to that bit. But obviously, when you mentioned about software and technology, and you being able to do, tell a machine how to do that piece of music, it sort of goes into my next type of question, really, which is, the thought and subject of AI moving forward. So, having seen you at a few seminars and wider events recently, the topic of conversation around AI, I know, is something you like to learn more about, but you're also particularly passionate about sustainability. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, it's, I'm a big fan of AI. I don't want to give across the impression that I think it's the greatest evil of our time and it's going to destroy the world, because I don't believe that. And it has a huge amount of place. I use it a lot for image creation, and I don't use it to write, because I think, especially from my point of view, from a sales marketing kind of thing, it's the human story and the human angle is which people buy into.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your line of work, this all too well. Yes, you can use AI to write you a marketing document, but it's not gonna stand out and really tell your own personal story. So there's a lot of danger with it in the way that we're just plowing forward. And the amount of resources that it takes, the amount of power that it needs. These are all very carbon intensive operations, and it's causing a lot of damage to our environment. It's causing a lot of damage to society. I use the example, I think it's Iowa, it's somewhere in the States. Land is very, very cheap, so there's a high concentration of data centers, and now the surrounding cities are struggling with water shortages because all the water's being siphoned off to cool the data centers for AI. And there is a lot of advancements in the chips which are being used in the servers to drive it, which are becoming more efficient. But at the same time, I think there is a danger that AI is going to grow so fast to the point where we're unable to sustain it. And I brought this up at a seminar quite recently at the ICA, and everyone on the panel kind of sat there and thought, well, yeah, that's a good point. And then it was like, okay, yeah, AI will work it out for us. They'll work out how to become more sustainable so we won't have all these problems in the future. And I thought, yeah, there's potential for that, but it's also quite a sort of flippant answer and quite a, what's the word? Quite a scary thought that we're just putting all of our trust into it.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, I've been to some of the seminars that you've been to recently as well. And, while there is, lots of conversation about positivity to do with AI, also negative sort of conversations, the main sort of question being, is it going to take our jobs and stuff like that? And, I don't think really anyone knows, if I'm honest. I feel like it's kind of guesswork at the moment. So from that point of view, there is an element of, scare, I suppose, to it, I suppose. But I mean, obviously going into, your mission in life, obviously sustainability is probably one of those. Yeah. But more generally, what's your mission in life?
There was a long time where I didn't really know. But as time has progressed and I've started to understand more about the person that I am and more about the person that I want to be, and especially since the birth of my daughter, I don't want to be one of these parents. Before I had no intention of having kids, but then we had a kid and it's the greatest thing ever. But I always hated these parents that were like, until you're a parent, you don't know, you don't understand. Until you've had a child, then you really understand. And I've never wanted to be one of those people, but it's changed my perception on life. And I feel like I had this discussion with a friend of mine the other day, and I've got a strong desire to help people, and I say that with utmost sincerity. I like to use my experiences to help people work through issues or troubles, or just help people succeed. And I
Yeah.
like to see other people succeed, and if I can feel like I have some influence over that, not from an ego point of view. I don't want everyone to name check me in their Oscars speech or anything like that, but for my own personal satisfaction, if I feel like someone is doing really, a friend of mine or someone that I respect or someone that I really like, and I feel if I've had some way in helping them succeed, even if it's something on a huge scale, but even if it's just something on a small scale, I want to help people. And that goes back to the sustainability, the social justice, the digital divide, all of this kind of stuff. I've always said that and then my daughter was born 2019. She then walked straight into COVID, then the cost of living crisis, then the war in Ukraine, and all of these things, and now what's happening in the US with Trump. And life is just pretty messed up. And we took the decision to bring her into this world. Well, and we didn't know at that point that any of this stuff was going to go on, but I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that there is some sort of world for her to grow up into.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think your point about helping people and really being passionate about that, I'm similar to that as well. And I think it all goes back to kind of networking in a way. We obviously go to quite a few of the same networking groups and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people turn up to a networking group, for example, and want to hand out business cards and almost want to sell you the dream before they even know your name. So, from that point of view, I always think that's probably the wrong way to do it. Whereas I think you're similar to me, where you want to build relationships with people. You want to really get to know these people, build that trust, authenticity, and all that sort of stuff. And, just become someone they can, really trust and refer to, really, from that point of view, and help. So, but obviously, mentioned about your daughter there as well. And I feel like there's lots of things that you're saying to me today that the makeup of who you are, there's got to be some sort of big backstory behind who you are. So our podcast is founded upon honesty and how testing times have impacted our lives. So away from business, can you tell us about a challenging time in your life that made you who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's been a long kind of journey and a long experience that's kind of got me to this person that I am now, talking to you as we are here. And it goes back to school. It goes back to this feeling that I wasn't the same as everyone else around me. And I knew that I was a bit different and I wanted different things. And school was a difficult time. I was a smart kid, so I was in all the top sets, but I was also quite sporty. My dad used to play football, he used to play cricket. He took over as chairman of Chelmsford Football Club, so I always had this competitive sport element thrown in there. But I never really fitted in with both kind of groups. And then growing up, leaving school, going to work, it was, I don't know, there was just something missing in there. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I wanted to be. And it was just this search of trying to find somewhere that I belonged.
Yeah.
And it was, in the end, it was London that kind of rescued me. And I just remember I kind of early 2000s, my relationship with my dad broke down quite a bit. I'd moved out quite young because my parents had split up, and thankfully they'd helped me out and got me onto the property ladder. But and my dad was very much old school. He was a man's man, didn't talk about your feelings, didn't express anything. You just kind of bottled it up and just carried on and plowed on with life. And I didn't know I didn't have the tools to express the troubles that I was having. So I just kind of kept it all to myself, and it just ate away at me. And then eventually there was one website. This was kind of before Facebook and before, even predates MySpace, to be honest. But it's called Don't Stay In.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no, it's defunct now, but it was amazing. And basically what it was a clubbing website, and it was a space for people I mean, it went like worldwide. There was little communities popping up in Australia, and then they got a lot of traction in the US, especially in like Texas and all this kind of area. And Arizona was quite big out there. And all of a sudden, I started to find people who had similar interests to what I did. And I'd go out in Chelmsford on a Friday night, Saturday night, trawling around all the bars and just listening to the same pop music. I mean, it was fun. It was great fun, just getting drunk with my mates and just having a laugh. But there was something that just wasn't enough. And it wasn't until I started venturing out to London and then discovering that there was people out there that liked the same music as me, that wanted to go to these big, dark, loud rooms and just hear this music that was unlike anything that I'd ever experienced before. And it was an escape from all of the issues that I was having in my own life. You could go to a club and you could spend 2-3 hours on the dance floor with your mates, but not having to you didn't even have to talk to these people, just being there and being in these environments. And it rescued me completely. I don't know. I mean, I was suffering with depression. I didn't know how to vocalize this to anyone. I didn't know where to go to get help. So I was kind of trapped in this spiral. And if it wasn't for discovering these people, these communities, these experiences that I had, then yeah, I think my life would have been incredibly different.
I noticed on your LinkedIn bio that you have a strap line, and this sort of makes a bit more sense now, that people make the human experiences, great relationships make business thrive. So just talk to us a little bit more about those thoughts behind that statement.
Yeah, it's kind of what I've touched on so far to this point. It's like I go to networking events and it's finding common ground. It's finding ways that you can connect with people, and that's what finding the clubbing community and the music community has sort of kind of taught me about life. It's finding ways to interact with people and finding common ground. I like learning about people. I like learning about their story. I like finding out what makes them tick. I go to networking events, and my boss probably won't be happy for me to be talking about this, but at times I end up talking about like our favorite kids TV programs to people that I've just met. And because we sit there with our children and we watch these programs, and some of them are terrible, some of them are brilliant. Like any parent with a child that's probably anywhere between like 3 and 7 will know about Bluey, and it's fantastic. It is the greatest TV program in the world. It is so good. And we have conversations about what's our favorite Bluey episode and all of this kind of, and it's like it's building those relationships with people. And then realizing that I'm not a sales guy who's just going to turn up and throw business cards at people and expect everyone to just fall over and want to work with me straight away because I've given them a business card. I mean, come on, it takes more than that. And I think sales has always had this perception of bit underhanded, bit crooked, only interested in making a quick buck. Don't care if you actually need the product or not, but I'm going to sell it to you. And that's not me. I'm not a pressure seller guy. I'm not a 100-mile-an-hour bowling and bamboozle you until you buy my product. It's like
Well, I think that's the difference between actually sometimes when you look at, especially our roles in business development,
Yeah,
there's not actually too much different between a sales executive, sales manager, whatever you want to call it, business development executive, business development manager. Those types of roles on the surface of it doesn't actually look that different, but actually it's so wide apart, it's unreal, because business development is actually developing that person's business, recommending what the solution is to the problem, whereas I feel like more sales is about looking at your targets, looking at, where am I going to get the next lead from and all that sort of stuff. That's more sales focused, whereas I'm more obviously sales, yes, but business development, I want to get the right thing for you. I want to try and get the right solution and actually work out the issue before knowing the solution, if that makes sense.
yeah. I mean, business development and marketing are very much the same sides of the same coin,
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned. It's the emotional connection. It's telling the story. It's getting your own story across, and then relating to your potential buyer, your client, your customer, whoever that may be, understanding what they are on an emotional level and connecting with that.
yeah.
And if you don't take the time to learn who the person is, you can't connect with them.
No, you're completely right. I mean, having listened to you today, and obviously looking back on, obviously early part of your life right through to now, how do you feel that those impacts, or even running your own business, working in another business today, how much of an impact has that had on, the family that once upon a time you didn't want? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's it's a balancing act, because I do a lot of kind of stuff outside of work as well. I run a company called Resonance HQCIC, which is Chelmsford based arts music collective. We do a lot of work with developing electronic music artists within the local area. We do a lot of events to help them progress. Again, it goes back to the want, the need, the desire that I have to help people. But these are all things that happen outside of work, and it's a juggling act between those commitments and family time. I try to make as much time as I can to be with my family. It's not always that easy. I try to put restrictions on myself in terms of how much I sit and look at my phone when I'm about my daughter. A, because I want to be present and I want to be there for her. B, I don't want to give her the image of life is just people sitting about looking at their phones. I don't want her to have a smartphone. I don't want her to be, glued to social media and all the issues that come along with that, until you're kind of old enough to really understand what all these things are.
Yep.
So yeah, it's made me look at life very differently, I think. Like when I was growing up, you develop your values from the values of your parents, I think. And they were very old fashioned. They weren't particularly kind of liberal in their thought process. And they both worked very, very hard. I mean, my dad is extremely entrepreneurial, which I think I've got my entrepreneurial streak from him. But it's like, you grow up, you go to school, you leave school, you get a job, you meet someone, you get married, you have kids, and that's the way your life is sort of set out. And I think once I started to find my place in this world and started to develop my own kind of personal values, you start questioning the values that you've been taught. You start questioning the values of the people around you, and you build your own set of life rules and your own set of values to live by.
Just moving into the section of trivia now, Andrew.
Okay.
So before we end the episode, we talk about some of your most favourite things in a quick fire round. So first question is favourite food.
Probably I would say Asian, probably Chinese.
Mhm.
I like a curry, but yeah, all the kind of Vietnamese, Chinese, Indonesian, Thai food, that kind of
Yeah.
area, I would say. Give me crispy duck pancakes, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. I think.
Yeah, like crispy duck, mate. Yeah. Favorite alcoholic beverage?
I I never really liked wine, but then I went to South Africa for my sister's wedding. She moved out, she was living in South Africa for a number of years, met a local out there, got married. So we all went out there for the wedding and we went wine tasting around Stellenbosch in Cape Town. And I was like, oh, actually, perhaps I do quite like wine. So, yeah, New World red wines. I like full bodied blends. I like South African wines. I like Chilean. I like Argentinian Malbec. A nice
Yeah.
beefy Argentinian Malbec would do me lovely.
Nice. Favorite band or artist from the world of music? I'm expecting some, well, left field answers. Should I say?
I
Yeah.
mean, the greatest band in the world are obviously Radiohead. There's no discussion about that one.
Radiohead. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of artists from various different guises. I mean, you've got Jeff Mills as one of the early pioneers of techno and is a constant innovator and just an incredible artist, incredible DJ. But then there's people like there's a Chilean artist called Ricardo Villalobos who is an absolute monster.
Favorite TV program or film?
Favorite film? There's a few. I'm going to have to say probably Fight Club, to the point where I named my daughter after Helena Bonham Carter's character. And it's weird because people who don't know Fight Club, it sounds like a terrible film because people just fighting each other, but it's so much more of a social commentary and it's an incredible film. And they're like, oh, Marla, that's an interesting name. I was like, yeah. Oh, where'd that come from? Yeah, it's for a film. Oh, what film? Fight Club. But yeah, so I have to say that. I mean, there's been a few that I watched recently, but the in terms of a TV show, Peep Show is obviously one of the greatest.
Peep Show is unreal. Yeah,
One of the greatest TV programs of all time.
Biggest pet peeve?
Inconsideration, I think. Like sometimes I was driving home the other day, right, and some woman with her dog, and I'm seeing her as I'm coming up, and the dog's obviously done its business, and she's got the little bag, and she's picked everything up, and she's tied it up, and she's put it on a wall and just walked off. I was like, and then I'm sort of looking in the rearview mirror as I'm driving past, and at no point did she go back and pick it up. I'm like, that's someone's wall, and you've left your dog there on the wall. I'm like, what are you doing? How can you come to a point where you think that's okay? It's like people that park over like 2 car parking spaces, and you think to yourself, you've got out the car, shut the door, and looked at yourself, thought, yeah, that's all right, and walked off. You're like, how is that okay? What's the matter with you people?
Well, I'm assuming it's not your favourite memory of your life, but that was going to be the next question. Is what was your favourite memory from your life so far?
Well, I've got to say the birth of my daughter and getting married. There's a lot to choose from. Driving to Detroit and driving through the outskirts of Detroit and being as scared as I possibly could, and then getting into the hotel and sitting down on the bed and thinking it's safe in here, I'm okay. That was a nice moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was Fabric did a post on I think it was Facebook when they were talking about room 1, and it was like, what was your favorite memory of room 1? And there was 7 or 8, 9 different incidents over the last God knows how many years where I just thought that was incredible.
Yeah.
Visiting Bob Marley's temple in Jamaica, that was quite a moment. May 1999, when Manchester United won the treble, that was a big moment.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I remember that.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
I'd say happiness is all about expectation. And I think people are unhappy because they set their expectation too high. Like, how many times have you thought, oh, I've got to go out and meet some people. I really can't be bothered to go out. I'll just go out for a little bit and I'll save my face and then I'll come home. And then it turns out to be this absolutely epic night. And it's like one of the greatest nights you've ever had in your entire life, because your expectation level was so low that the minute it goes past that and keeps going past it, everything just becomes so much more incredible.
Yeah.
And I think people set, and this goes back to kids and social media, the expectation of what you're supposed to be. You know, you see all these doctored photoshopped images of people looking ridiculously thin, and people like all these influencers, look at me with this incredible life that I've got. You know, we give these unrealistic expectations to people of what their lives should be. So the natural desire is, I want to be better than that person. I want to be better than that person.
Yeah.
And when you're not, it just leads to unhappiness.
Yeah.
So if you can set expectations at a realistic level, anything above that is going to make you happy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Last question of the trivia round: 3 guests you would invite to a dinner party and why?
3 guests I'd invite to a dinner party. That is a good question. I'd probably ask Freud, because I'm finding myself more and more interested in behavioral science and the way that the human mind works and the way that we can be conditioned to respond to things in certain ways. So to be able to sit there and just fire questions at him about the human brain would be incredible, I think.
Yep.
And that would be such a good opportunity that you just wouldn't get. I'd probably ask Villalobos, because it would just be hilarious just to spend an extended amount of time with him. So that's 2. Who else? Maybe Eric Cantona. He'd be amazing.
Do you know, I was going to say, surely it's going to be somebody from that Manchester United team in '98.
Oh no, he wasn't in the '99 team,
but
he was in the 1996 FA Cup final against Liverpool, when David James flapped at that corner and he smashed in the half volley from the edge of the box.
Yeah.
And that was a terrible game of football, but Liverpool turned up in their cream suits. Like that was their day out for them. They weren't expecting to win, but I remember we stood there and we watched the coach drive in, both coaches, and all the Liverpool players were like, oh, they're on a Jolly Boys outing. Oh, look at all of us in our fancy suits. And then the Man United coach drove in, and all the players were like looking out the window and waving at everyone. And there was Eric Cantona at the back of the bus, just looked out the window and he sort of just gave a nod, knowing nod to all the United fans. And it was like, yeah, we're going to win this. We're here to win this.
Yeah.
And he'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good dinner party, I must admit. Look, Andrew, it's been a real pleasure to have you on today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Perhaps you'd just like to tell us, tell listeners about where they can find you, in terms of website, sort of locations, social media handles, all that sort of stuff.
You can check out iSex through our website, isex.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn, where I believe I'm Andrew-Wright-iSex, I believe. If you're kind of interested in my more creative music areas. On Instagram, you can find me at Andrew Wright Arts. TikTok, you can find me as Contour-Techno. That's Contour with a K. Yeah, that's probably about it, really.
So that's it for this episode of People Behind Brands. If you like what you heard today, do yourself a favour, subscribe to our exclusive content now, and follow us on our social media when you search People Behind Brands podcast or at podcast PBB. Join us next time for a brand new guest as we explore more life lessons from the world of business. We'll see you soon. Ta-da!